This is Naked by the Future Farm, where entrepreneurship is stripped to its vulnerable core. Brought to you by Vladi and Nektarios Lolios. And remember to subscribe, follow, and rate Naked to help us share it with the world. Hey, buddy.
Hey, hi, Vladi.
How are you doing today?
It's Friday afternoon, and it feels like about time that it's Friday afternoon. So it's been an intense week, but I'm in a good place because I can see how in 3 to 4 hours I can wind down. How about you?
It's nearly an evening here. It's 5:30, so I'm in Pakistan. I'm not sure if I think this is our first extra that we are recording in this setup. That I'm 5 hours ahead of London. And how am I? I think good. This trip, so I've been here now for about, it feels certainly longer than it is. I think now it's about 2 weeks that it is, not even full 2 weeks. I think Sunday will be 2 weeks. And this trip, I think I shared this with you. I did because we discussed this stuff, is that I am trying to really put conscious effort into balancing more the work, sleep, work model. And so far it's been good. Went for a painting class 2 days ago, played tennis yesterday night, and read some books. We went for cycling. Small things, but they really, they land in a good way. So the overall feeling is certainly much more balanced. I feel more fresh, sort of like having a wider space around me. Yeah, and I think it impacts how I show up on the calls as well. But you can tell.
No, it's true. We were also kind of learning how to use that ExtraNAKED format, right? Because it's supposed to be more topical, more real time. And right now, this is now kind of mid-February. And it reminds me of the first lockdown we had in the UK, where at the beginning you had an element of novelty and adjustment. But then it just felt like this one long day where you go to sleep and wake up again, and you work and you go to sleep and wake up again, a little bit what you described. But it literally feels like an ongoing day. There's no break. And making a conscious effort to do something that takes you out of that is really important, because it's easy just to fall into this.
Yeah, the rituals.
Yeah, but it was easier in the summer or in the spring because the weather was better. Now outside in London at the moment it's -1. And you really don't want to go out for a walk. You know? But yeah, the walks planned for the weekend, a couple of long walks.
That's good.
What's allowed.
That's good. But it's interesting because when I mentioned the model, the work, bad work, the sleep, I didn't think of COVID at all. Because in here in Pakistan, and I think probably generally in emerging markets, and also I think the climate here is just so different. When you said it's mid-Feb, I was like seriously, what? Because I have, like, over here it's over 20 degrees in Karachi. When you go on the north, it's different. And I'm saying all of this not to brag about it, but I'm saying it because it does impact how I show up and my overall state. And that this balance was there regardless of COVID. So here we are trying to be sort of cautious and safe. We still wear masks and all of it. But yeah, my disbalance was related to, I think, maybe even what we are going into discussing today, a little bit of that roller coaster. So yeah.
Let's do that. Let's talk about addiction and entrepreneurship, and let's talk about Stefan.
Yeah, it was very special. I find it very, very special. Not that the other episodes are not, but there was something in there that I could connect to, although so there are layers to this. I could connect not because I would have experience with addiction on the level of substance. I think I could dig deeper into some addictive behaviors. And I think that was already for me sort of like expanding the horizon around the topic, right? That it's not just the substances that we naturally box this. But there is some personal experience that I'll share later, which was around the sort of a root cause behind developing such symptoms, such as being addicted to some substance or actions, etc., etc. But yeah. So what about yourself? Where do you want to unpack this whole thing?
One of the reasons this episode was particularly important to me is because the reason Future Farm is related to that, and not from my own experience. But when I started working really closely with the entrepreneurs in Startup Bootcamp, so we're going back to 2014, I was still very much subscribed to the hype and the glamour of it. And it was all about working hard. It was all about the cliche.
Do you just want to mention for some people who might not know what Startup Bootcamp is? Like just
it's a startup accelerator where you work with early stage companies and help them in a 3-month high intensity program to grow faster than they would by themselves with mentoring, with kind of support, business support, entrepreneurial support, but also emotional support. So there was a parental relationship as well with the founders. But interestingly enough, our tagline was, you'll grow in 3 months with us in the same way that you would have grown outside by yourself in a year. So there was a pressure cooker mentality and there was a lot of hard work thing. And this is like one of the things we would say to the startup is, every day is 1% of the program. So we practically fed them this clock into their brains.
I even feel the anxiety.
Pressure, but it was amazing. It was fantastic because, you kind of also, pressure is not necessarily a bad thing, but there was, the counterbalance wasn't there. There was nothing to actually say, but also you need to look after yourself. So we'll help you on both sides, right? And it was about a month in where we were having an amazing time working with the startups, and we would help them with their business struggles and introduce amazing people, that one of the guys from one of the teams comes to me and says, "Can I have a quiet conversation with you?" So we went into a quiet room and he goes, "What's your policy on drug use on premises?" And I just looked at him and literally going, "What's he talking about?" And I said, "What do you mean?" And he says, "Well, last Friday when everybody had left, I go to the bathroom and there were 2 guys doing lines of cocaine. And I felt really uncomfortable." And at that point, I still hadn't clocked. I didn't ask why were they doing this. For me, cocaine has always been associated with being a party drug. And so I felt I just needed to talk to the startups from a legal perspective. But then when I started thinking about this and actually looked at the individuals who were always on, that didn't sleep much and all that, I realized, oh my God, actually something else is happening here. And then I started sort of kind of observing, watching for signals, and you realize people disappearing in the bathroom. You realize people taking some pills and you don't know what they are, and there could be vitamins, there could be something else. But little by little, this image came together that actually quite a few people in the startup world use a variety of different substances to keep themselves awake, to keep themselves alert, to make themselves go to sleep. So there was this whole world that I was not aware of. So people burning out because they're burning the candle at both ends, as the saying goes, and not realizing that they're doing damage to themselves. That was the first time I had a signal that this was that was the dark side of the very bright entrepreneurial light that was supposed to change the world. And 6 years later, 5 years later, I'm sitting there talking to you about what can we do to actually raise awareness on that.
So the bit that is sort of that I want to unpack in what you shared is when you said that in your own words was when you were referring to it as they do it because they want to counterbalance the speed, right? They cannot sleep or they want to sleep and all of that. And I was actually thinking is that, and linking it back to what Stefan shared with us, was that they might do it for other reasons as well. Mm-hmm. And this is where I think it's interesting to go deeper. It actually made me think about a friend who, and I didn't think about it when I was preparing for the conversation, but now listening to you, it just popped into my mind. And I saw him that he used alcohol and he's a founder, was a startup founder, then became a founder of company and actually a serial entrepreneur. And I was by his side and I was observing how he's using alcohol to actually switch off and let go and be able to sort of just enter into that other identity of his life. So that was similar probably to what you were describing, but what sort of resonated with me big time on a personal level from Stefan's story was this sort of deeper root cause around him or his sort of experience where he was, in his own words, he's saying that I needed to belong and I was looking for the worthiness and the recognition, right? And then hence I found this group of people where I felt that actually I started, I could be somebody, I could be cool, and different words, right? I don't want to misuse the words. And that's what shook me a little bit, because when I was going back and listening to the conversation, I was like, and when you also expand the definition of that, you don't have to only develop sort of addictive behaviors towards substance, but you can it can be sort of certain actions, and we are relating it to entrepreneurship as well. I was just reflecting on my own experience, and what came to my mind was in my early 20s, this sort of race around all those internships in Brussels and different ways of or forms of achievement that I went after. And I was really good at this. And it was like high speed. And I was trying to sort of unpack it for myself. And I was like going back and I was like, what's the root cause here? And I could really resonate with what Stefan said. And I was like, I really wanted sort of my parents to feel like, yeah, it's a good path you are on. We see you. And so it was a little bit of that recognition, and there was a pleasing element as well. I think part of that is still ongoing for me, but working on it. But that was quite big for me, in the conversation with him, where it went beyond I'm using it because I want to get more sleep or balance some energy level. But it was related to that self-worthiness and need to belong and different hidden narratives and needs.
One thing we haven't really kind of clarified is that the conversation we had with Stefan was ultimately about drug abuse or substance abuse in itself, but then entrepreneurship being a drug.
Yeah.
And how you get into entrepreneurship because it ticks a few boxes or kind of creates a few things in your body and your brain that you would get from a substance, right? Or from alcohol. And there is this thing where you start digging deeper and figure out what's going on, right? Or that we have the entrepreneurs that we know, they go, well, I switch off. I run marathons on the weekend. And you go, which bit of switching off are we talking about here? Because ultimately you're replacing one thing that kind of stimulates the adrenaline or the endorphins in your body with another thing that gives you that extreme kick, right? And again, we're not here to kind of go to the very bottom of why you're doing this, because there would be a counseling session and an analysis session with somebody, right? But when you look at Stefan, the thing that really made a difference, or that really opened my eyes, was you can be as self-aware as you want. You can be a person who understands feelings and emotions, understands to articulate your thoughts, but it doesn't keep you from doing it again, because he's been through that cycle a few times, right?
Yeah,
so when Stefan talks about the mental health leave that he took recently, it was the second time that he did a startup and nearly burned out, right? And this recognition is just, okay, so it's also not you do it once, you learn something from it, you move on. There's something in there that you really need to address deeper to keep you from doing it again, right?
Yeah, and I saw another cycle on the top of the fact that it is his second company and the relationship to burnout. I saw a pattern repeating when he shared his experience with one, sort of the drug and alcohol addiction. The second was relationship to sports, right? So he was sort of looking, and as he described, like looking for an alternative or a way to help him heal. But also when he immersed, he went full on to the levels that started to be harmful. And the third was the entrepreneurial journey. And within that, it's sort of a second route. So I think, just to support your point around that, you can find yourself in a similar space, although you have that awareness, because yes, he, even at this point, I mean, he was very, very self-aware, right? But I think that continuous effort around understanding oneself and understanding your own operating system is just core. That was one of my biggest takeaway from the conversation. And
I think I could relate to quite a few of the things that Stefan said. There was the one thing where I was thinking that in my early days, I got so much joy out of being able to say that I only slept 4 hours every night, and that I wasn't bragging, but I felt it was an achievement to say, because at one point I did this stupid trip where I did Mexico City, Mumbai, and Melbourne in a week.
Now you're bragging.
No, but I know
it does feel like it, though.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like, Nektarios is bragging now.
But the reason I'm saying it is because, and I was telling people this week, we're doing cities that start with the letter M, haha. And I thought it was something it is an achievement. It wasn't so much to the outside, but to myself. It's like, look, no sleep, multiple cities, and it's all because we're building something amazing. And now looking back and going, what a fool, what a fool, because there's nobody gains from this, because you're not the same quality. You don't deliver the same quality. You're ruining yourself, your health, your mental health, your emotional health, and all these things. But then you start digging and go, why am I doing this? Very much to your point. Partly because I needed also my validation, and I felt that for the first time in my life, I was doing something meaningful. And for me, that was the thing where I got my kick out of. But the other thing was that I had nobody. And this was the thing where Stefan really pushed a button with me. Because he said that pretty much in every of these cycles, there was an external party that alerted him to it, right? It was the people he went out with partying, and it was his colleagues, right? And if it hadn't been for my partner, if it hadn't been for Wade to say to me, look, what are you doing? I would have continued there. So I also realized that because of this confidence that comes with a level of introspection and self-awareness, you can fool yourself in having it under control. So you need that mirror. You need somebody you trust, to go sit you down and go, hey, what's going on? You need to stop. And I was grateful for that, but I was also super defensive about it.
You said a few minutes back that if we dig deeper and look into why people do what they do, right, and why they develop, let's say, the addictive behaviors, it would be a counseling or therapy. And you said that maybe we shouldn't go there because it's going to be that session. But I was thinking we should go there. I mean, because for me, to be honest, that's the place, and maybe that's how I'm wired. But that's where I feel the foundation, the core sits. And now you said it around the need of validation. I said it myself, right? So that need of pleasing, and why do I have a need of pleasing, and all of that. And I feel like to free myself up, I feel like I need to have a clarity around those sort of hidden baggages, or the baggage that I'm carrying from, usually it's from a young age, but anyhow, not to do the therapy now. I do feel that inner work really is the place to go, because otherwise I feel there is a danger to address the symptom and then it just comes up in a different way in a later, I would assume, that's very personal, how it comes up again. But I think the danger and risk is there big time.
If I were to summarize one of my key learnings out of the session with Stefan, it's probably that I didn't make that connection that goes both ways. So I thought, start the entrepreneurial journey, you're likely to kind of develop addictive behaviors and use substances or other things to help with the journey. And I didn't really realize, no, you go sometimes into this, or maybe often into this, because you're predispositioned to that, because this gives you the kick that you're craving. And then maybe you use substances on top. And that was a lot of food for thought for me.
There was another layer that I sort of had when looking at it, which was that for some people, going on that path of building a venture or committing yourself to a cause through being a founder and entrepreneur can be a path towards healing, or it can be that healing sort of avenue. I wanted to talk to you also about some of the ways to cope and what different people use. And it was interesting when, for me personally, when Stefan was describing the power of the AA's group and the peer group, basically, right, where you go and it's a safe environment and you're vulnerable. And I remembered our founders' anonymous groups, which we did a few years back, and they were also very safe, very vulnerable, and the founders sort of opened up around different personal struggles and challenges, and it just confirmed to me so much of power is in there, in the sharing and in that shared experience with other people. So that was something that I found quite powerful.
This is also something we've kind of seen in all our research, right? Peer conversations. I don't want an expert. I want somebody who's been there, and somebody who can maybe give me empathy. It all goes back always to the same things. It's self-awareness.
It is very true. Self-awareness. I think self-awareness, some skills, actually. I do believe that there are some skills you can sort of develop and train. But yeah, and having support system, peer group being one of them. I was listening yesterday again on one of the sort of meditation mobile apps. I was listening to a program which was created by clinical psychologist Tara Brach. She's quite known, and she has this whole sort of practice around self-compassion. And I felt that it was quite timely because the 12 principles that Stefan mentioned that they use in the AA group, I found that there was such a parallel between what she was describing around the self-compassion and how do you develop self-compassion related to, again, self-worthiness, self-love. And she was using this methodology, and it's really accessible out there. So if you guys are interested, just Google it, Tara Brach. And the methodology is called RAIN. This is my Achilles heel because I can't spell. But it's like rain is raining, okay? I'm going to stay at this. But basically it goes like recognize what is happening. Allow the experience to be there just as it is. So let go. I for investigate with interest and care, and the N, nurture with self-compassion. And it's quite good. I was using it for my own sort of purpose and use. So found it quite useful as a principle and method.
We can add a link to the resources.
Yeah, let's do that. What about yourself? Is there something that you find useful? And we covered sort of the peer group.
I think, I talk a lot about the counseling, and for me, it all comes up there. But through my counseling, I actually explore different things. So one of the things we talked about was worthiness, right? Mm-hmm. Another one was where I display certain compulsive behaviors. And it could be in my social media kind of use, and it could be, right, I like to collect things. We haven't even gone down that path.
That's actually true. I forgot about that. Friends, if we at some point we have to do this, we have to give you access to some pictures of Nektarios. Now, where are those? Where are they stored? Because
they're all in my flat in different bits and bobs.
But now we nudged. You have to say what it is.
Oh no! I mean, come on! Everybody knows that I collect sneakers.
Not everybody knows. There are people who don't know you. He's bragging again. I have to call him out. Everybody knows.
I collect New Balance sneakers.
Good. This is how it starts. R is recognize what is happening.
Very good. Jeez, I never thought we'd go down that path. No, but going back to your question, just to kind of dig me out of that hole, it's also how much it impacts your life. And I think sometimes you just don't realize that it impacts your life more than it does. So for me, the conversations that I have with my therapist are also give me little signals where I go back and go, am I being kind of compassionate with myself and just accept the fact that it's there, but I can manage it? Or is it something where I realize, oh my God, it actually impacts my life more than I thought? But in terms of tools, it's also down for people to experiment. And I think that's one of the things that people are usually quite unaware of, because they think there's only a linear way to getting better. There's only one way, and it's like one step after another. But it's also, we're so different. Some of us are more conversational. Some of us are more extrovert. Some of us more introvert. For some people, it's reading about it first before you start a conversation. And maybe one of the things to leave people with is, if you feel something's going on, start exploring, but don't think that just because one thing didn't work for you, that there's no hope, because everybody responds to different triggers.
Yeah, no, I love that. Thank you for bringing that, sort of broadening up the box that we so often find ourselves within. And maybe last shout out from me again. Thank you, Stefan. I think the power of your story and experience that you shared with us and with the world means a lot. And I think maybe it gave sort of permission to some people out there to actually move towards some healing path. So thank you for that.
Thank you from my side as well.
Have a good evening, Nektarios.
And you have a wonderful weekend.
Happy new Chinese year. Did I say it correct? Oh my God. Okay, let's end.
Thank you, Vladi. You take care. You've been listening to Naked by The Future Farm, where entrepreneurship is stripped to its vulnerable core. To learn more about our work, sign up to our newsletter or visit thefuturefarm.co, where you can also apply to be a Naked guest. Naked is produced by Dan Turgel and edited by Catherine Dworkin. And remember, subscribe, follow, and rate Naked to help share it with the world.